Hello, friends. How you doing? Hopefully you could hear me. I see the lines on the indicator for the volume seem to be working. If I could get a quick sound check, audio is good. Thank you, Yaniv. I appreciate that. We have a lot to talk about, friends. As you know, we are in a really interesting place right now, where astrologically we have 5 planets retrograde, including Mercury, which is about communication and our thinking. So many of us are having dreams about the past. We're thinking about the past. Jupiter is also in retrograde as well. So it's in Cancer. In Western astrology, it's in Cancer. So we're really being dragged into the past for some reason. And this is always a time of review when we have these retrograde planets. Retrograde just means going back or going within. That's all it means. It's nothing to be afraid of. It's just a process of understanding the choices that you've made and, where you've been. And that's all it means. Now, the future, that's a different story. We are in a time right now where we are basically have to make choices. We have to make choices. Humanity has to come to an understanding of its power and needs to unite in order to move forward in these next couple of years. I've already started the astrology for 2026. It will be out shortly. And of course, this has a lot to do with AI and technology and digital identification, which I'll touch upon a little bit in this video. I do have a bunch of slides. I'm going to share my screen in about 3 or 4 minutes. And, and then, of course, we're going to be talking about what's going on in the political theater, which I really can't stand, but I have to talk about it because it gives you an idea of what's going on. Of course, I cannot talk unfiltered here. This is why at 12 noon, I will be in my inner circle community. And the link is down below for you folks that want to join. There's a 7-day free trial, so there's no obligation. Today is going to be very important, actually, because one of the topics I will be talking about in the inner circle is the country in the Middle East that starts with an I. I will touch upon it in this video and then continue going deeper down the rabbit hole in the inner circle, because I cannot talk about that stuff here. If you understand what's really happening, the censorship that is going to be thrust upon us just in the next year is going to be mind-boggling. And it's coming from these big tech companies with pressure from this country in the Middle East that starts with an I. I've already tried to point out some of this. Some of you already know this. Some of you don't. Oracle was purchased by Larry what's his name? Elders? No, Larry something. I forgot his last name. Sorry. It eludes me. But he's deeply connected to that Middle East country. And they've made no bones about it. They are going to try and control as much information as possible, keeping it a very positive spin on that country in the Middle East. And the reason I'm bringing this up, thank you, Larry Ellison. The reason I'm bringing this up because this country is going to be front and center in the next 2 months or so. I've looked at the astrology at that country's birth chart. I will be covering it in the inner circle. So again, consider joining the 7-day trial free. If you don't like it, you leave, but I hope you stay. But my point being is this is very important. When you want to understand politics and geopolitical stuff, you have to go deeper than just the surface. You have to go beyond the news puppets. You have to go beyond the puppets in politics. And you have to see who's pulling the strings. And this is what I've been able to do my whole life and the last 30 years of understanding how this structure on this planet works. And it's taken me pretty far down the rabbit hole. And as I've pointed out many times before, I said it takes you to extraterrestrials, it takes you to dimensions, different realities, and it takes you to AI technology or a simulation or some sort of matrix that seems to be controlling most of this planet. That's how deep it goes, friends. That's what I've discovered. And so when we talk politics and we talk about one country or another, it's just a small part of the bigger picture that's at play here. All right. And I do have a slide in this presentation to give you an idea of what it looks like, how the power structure is set up. So we're going to get on in a second or so, in a few minutes, actually a few seconds, and I'm going to start the slideshow. I'm also going to cover the new moon that's going to be on the 19th and 20th. So I'll be doing some of that astrology. So I'm going to cover some of the stuff that's going on, and then we'll get into the astrology, the second half of the video. Okay, so here we go. Let me share my screen here, and we're going to get into this presentation. Okay, friends, and thank you all for being here. I appreciate it. All right, so there is the screen. Here is the slideshow. There are all my slides. Let me close this, start the slideshow. All right, hopefully everyone could see this. And I've called this video From Shadow to Light, and I'm going to explain why that is. Because if you notice, there are people in the shadows here, and there seems to be some sort of lighting. And of course, this picture is perfect for what I wanted to get across. From shadow to light, what does that imply? That means things that are hidden are coming to our awareness. They're coming to the forefront. What have I been saying for the last couple of years? For those of you that have been following me, I said there's a great awakening occurring. And it doesn't matter what the topic is, whether it's religion, politics, monetary systems, governments, whatever. It does not matter, friends. It will be revealed. Things will be revealed. You will begin to see how they really operate. That's what I'm here to do. That's what I'm here to help people understand. And ultimately, to get to the point to help people remember, we are spiritual energy beings in these physical containers having the human experience. That's what it comes down to. Okay. So anyway, this is a time as we are making our way through Scorpio. The sun is in the sign of Scorpio, and I do have charts for all this. And we're going to get into all of this, but it's from shadow to light is what we are seeing. And we're going to see a lot more of that light coming the second half of November when the sun enters Sagittarius, Venus enters Sagittarius, Mercury gets back into Sagittarius, and then, the curiosity level starts going up. So this is what I mean by shadow to light. All right, so let's get into it. First of all, I want to cover the amazing amounts of solar activity we had in the last 2 weeks, especially in this past week or so. Tremendous amounts of solar activity to the point where it's either making us tired, confused, irritable, empowered. Some people don't even get affected by it. I totally understand. But I could tell you, every time these things go off, whatever the hell it is, we are being affected by the electromagnetic energy of this stuff because it hits the Earth's magnetic field, it hits us, and it definitely is affecting many people. So here is a chart that I posted on social media and in my inner circle that we had on the 12th, a 9 rating. This is the amount of energy that is hitting the Earth, the geomagnetic energy. It's an overall measurement of the amount of electromagnetic energy that's hitting the Earth. And when it gets into these yellow and especially red zones, and we have had almost a 9 before last year, we had a tremendous amount of energy. And I remember I felt like I had 10 cups of coffee, and it was nervous energy. Okay. And very similar to this. This one was very heavy and felt very sleepy. No matter, if I had a cup of coffee or anything else, it wasn't helping. So I knew there was something more. And then when I looked up the KP index and I realized the solar flares, I realized, this was affecting me. Anyway, so here is just an example of some of the folks on social media there that were sending me their pictures of what they were actually picturing. Here's one in Arkansas. This happened at night on 11/11. You could literally see the energy hitting the Earth's magnetic field and creating these beautiful colors. Okay, so here's another one from East Tennessee around the same time. And then, of course, we had another one just hit. This one was on the 14th and 15th. So it usually takes about 2 days or so for that energy to come and hit the Earth. So right now, as we're doing this, we are being engulfed by this cosmic energy. This one happens to have been an X4. This is from spaceweather.com. This is important, friends, because when you feel your mood switch out of nowhere, or you feel confused, or better yet, having technological glitches with electronics, cell phones, computers, that is very important as well, because we also have Mercury that's retrograde. Mercury rules this area of our lives. In other words, it's associated with it. Technology, communication, misunderstandings, all of that stuff. So we're experiencing this right now into tomorrow. We have the Mercury retrograde, as I pointed out, from November 9th through the 29th, which means retrograde just means if we're looking above, and I should have pulled up a chart from one of these space agencies or whatever, but it appears that the planet Mercury has fallen behind the Earth. That's what it means by retrograde. Okay. And when it does that, it's pulling in a different way on the Earth's magnetic field and on the sun. That's all it means. But symbolically, it represents a time where there's a doorway that opens that we could reflect on what we've experienced, where we've been, the choices we've made. That's what it means. Okay. And so it started off in Sagittarius. It will be going into Scorpio on the 18th, and I do have a chart for that. So I want you to keep that in mind. Many people have commented on some of the posts, oh, no, not retrograde again. I said, yes. And there's 5 planets in retrograde. The more the outer planets go retrograde, we definitely slow down. We have this feeling like inertia is kicking in, or we're trying to drive and we're not going anywhere. Especially when we have the inner planets. The inner planets are Mercury, Venus, and Mars. When any one of them go retrograde, or 2 of them go retrograde, we absolutely feel it. Okay, so again, use this as symbolism. All right, so let's talk about these 5 planets. Here we have Mercury. We have Jupiter just went retrograde on the 11th. We have Uranus that backtracked into Taurus, the sign of money and values. And we also have Neptune and Saturn that are in retrograde in Pisces. Okay. And these 2 will be in Pisces for the last time this year. So very important because they will be switching signs next year. Uranus will also be going into Gemini next year, will not return to Taurus. Now, I want to point out something. Taurus, this is a very important sign right now because it has a lot to do with our foundation. The earth, it has to do with food. It has to do with money. It has to do with value. And Uranus is in retrograde, basically saying, hey, what's important to you? What do you really value? Is your money safe? That's what it's asking. So with 5 planets in retrograde, it is absolutely like a standstill. And nobody likes that. I admit it. Nobody likes that. But it's a review process. That doesn't mean you do nothing. You review, you take small steps, you understand things, and you move on. That's how it works. Okay. So 5 planets in retrograde. Now, I want to talk about Scorpio for a second because the sun is in Scorpio, Venus is in Scorpio, and Mercury is going to backtrack into Scorpio. This is a sign that is associated with everything I pointed out here. And there's a reason why I'm focusing on this right now. It's a very passionate sign. It's a very secretive sign. It's very possessive. It's cunning. It's ruthless. It's destructive. The power of Scorpio is associated with Pluto, the underworld. And it has a lot to do with the sort of death and destruction, either symbolically or literally. It's a competitive sign. It's deep curiosity. It's an investigative sign. It loves to investigate things. It can be very manipulative, jealous, and vengeful. Okay. Now, I just pointed out these qualities. There's so many other qualities. So please, you Scorpios out there, don't get offended. I'm trying to tie this into what I'm talking about today. Okay. But it's a very powerful sign. Okay. For transforming. Yes, it is a very sexual sign too. But these are some of the top 10 careers Scorpios usually go into because of their nature. Coroner, forensic expert, absolutely. They are fascinated by things that involve death and, criminal investigation. How did someone die? What are the clues? They love to focus on those little details that are overlooked. They make great private investigators. Now, this is going to be important. This is why I highlighted these. Psychiatrists, absolutely. Almost all of the psychiatrists go into that field because they have some sort of strong Scorpio in their chart. Embalmers, again, associated with death. Researcher. These are guys that love to investigate things and how they work, especially having to do with the past. What happened in the past, 1,000 years ago, 1,200 years ago. Scorpio energy loves that. It loves to investigate the past. And of course, the rest of them are self-explanatory. A surgeon, digging deep into someone and transforming them. Sex therapist, absolutely. This one here, not really a profession, but I just saw this slide and I figured I'd use it. Bill collector, yes. Scorpio energy loves to handle other people's money, and a hypnotist. Absolutely. But I want to focus on this: private investigator, psychiatrist, and researcher. So as we go through Scorpio, this energy in us, depending on if it's even stronger in our charts, it comes out even more. So we become much more curious about the hidden realms. Okay. Now, why am I pointing this out? Because now we're going to go into the political theater nonsense. So if you understand what's been going on here with this clown over here that, mysteriously passed away in jail, these files were petitioned by Thomas Massey and Marjorie Taylor Greene and a few others for a House floor. And I forgot what it was called. It was called something, the discharge petition. That's what it was called. Okay. They wanted a vote on the floor to try and get all of the names released in these files. But of course, they were met with major blockages, major, backlash. And Thomas Massey, as you know, along with Marjorie Taylor Greene, have been big advocates of, hey, let's not fund this country in the Middle East anymore. Let's stop giving them money. And boy, have they been targeted. They're up for re-election, both of them. And their opponents are raising so much money. And it's all coming from the largest, most powerful lobbying group in Washington. I'll give you its initials, AIPAC. Okay? So you do your math. But anyway, I'm pointing this out. And of course, Trump has been going after Marjorie Taylor Greene big time on his social media platform, calling her names now. Today, he calls us something else. She's lost her mind, all this stuff. No, she's a truth seeker, like many of us. Again, I don't affiliate myself with any political party, okay? And I've said this before. The only reason I supported this man over here was because he is going to show, whether directly or indirectly, the world how the system really works, how the corrupt system really works. And I said, go for it, do it, go, because no one else is going to do it. And so he's inadvertently doing it, he's accidentally doing it, and he's directly doing it. Not that I think he's the savior. I do not believe he's any savior, only because, of what's going on with AI and his buddies who are basically implementing this new AI system behind the scenes, Palantir and all these other companies. So I'm very skeptical about all of it. As I've said many times, friends, listen to everything. Don't believe a freaking word, because you don't understand the bigger picture. If you cannot put the bigger picture together, you're just looking at puppets and actors playing their parts. All right. So they took the vote, and of course it was shot down, and they're blaming it on the Democrats for blocking it. So that vote is not going anywhere. It was no surprise that it was going anywhere. But again, they're putting it out in the public so that people could see who's blocking it. Do you understand what's happening? Remember, we got the Scorpio energy here, and these people are showing you how corrupt the system is and who the players are and what's going on. So just remember that, okay? But this is very important here. We know there's a deep connection between this guy and this country right here. Everyone online knows it. All these young Gen Z kids know it. And they are putting out video after video. And Taylor Greene and Massey know it, and many others know it. And they're worried because this information, once the dam breaks, and it will break, friends, because this country is front and center in the next couple of months. As a matter of fact, I'm going to make a prediction here right now. Within the next week or two, because of the new moon coming in, they will attack another country. Okay? So keep an eye on that. That's going to happen. And so it could be Iran. It could be another one of the Arabic countries, but there's going to be another attack real soon. And it's not really, a psychic prediction. It's more common sense. But according to the astrology, there's going to be another attack by this country here towards another neighbor. All right? But remember, friends, I showed you this post, okay, that Taylor Greene, put forth this amendment in the House to defund this country right here. Look at the votes. For those of you that are new to this channel, I really don't care about people's nationality, what country they're with, what religion they are. I really don't give two craps. I'm just showing you the evidence, okay? 422 members of our House of Representatives, right here, there's the vote, said, no, we can't stop the funding to this country right here. 422 to 6. Gee, I wonder who really runs our government. Do you not see the picture, friends? This is what these Gen Z kids are screaming at the top of their lungs on Instagram and X and all these other platforms. They are screaming, going, hey, you're destroying this country. And this country here, this country here seems to be controlling our country. They're screaming at the top of their lungs. And so this seems to be the fact, friends. Okay, this is not speculation. This is not hatred. This is not anti-anything. It's just showing you the facts. And if you can't draw this conclusion, I'm sorry, then, you just don't have the ability to see what's really going on. Okay, but let's talk about this because this is important. Again, this country is now asking for 76 billion over the next 20 years. Let me get this straight now. This is coming from Axio, and I'm going to read this for you. They know that they're in trouble. And believe me, friends, they are going to have a tough time. This country is going to have a real tough time going uphill. And remember, I said this about less than a year ago when I did their chart on YouTube. I said this country in the next year or two, or in the next couple of years, is going to have a real difficult time. And they know it. They know astrology. They understand the cycles. They understand the backlash, what's happening to them. And so now, this is just in the last couple of days, Axios is reporting this, that this country wants an agreement with our country for 20 years. Are you getting this? 20 years at $4 billion a year, totaling somewhere around $76 billion for weapons. Okay. And this is the kind of stuff that you're scratching your head going, what the, here it is on Thursday, November 13th. Axios reported that this country has entered negotiations with U.S. on new framework to fund weapons to this country called a Memorandum of Understanding of MOU. This country and the U.S. have signed 3 10-year frameworks worth $21.3 billion in 98, $32 billion in 2008, and $38 billion in 2016. Okay, Axios reports this country is calling this for a framework for a 20-year agreement that would cost taxpayers $76 billion or more. Now, if you're one of these young Gen Z kids and you see this, what the hell are you thinking? Here, while millions of Americans struggle just to keep a roof over their heads, and many of them can't even because the cost of everything has gone through the roof, or see a doctor, funding this country's slaughter of these people here remains one of Trump's top priorities. You gotta scratch your head and you gotta go, what the hell are they doing? Why is all this money going over there? Okay. Now I have answers to all this, but again, I can't say that here. Notice I have to speak, in code. All right. But I've talked about all this. I will be talking about this in the inner circle, much deeper than I'm talking about it here, friends. And you have to understand this country's role in that Middle East. And it goes much deeper than you could imagine, friends. It is so, when I learned this years ago, I was like, oh my God, what the hell is controlling this planet? Because these people are just playing their role. This country is playing its role. So anyway, this is what, I saw this ad and I put it up here. I have nothing to do with this blockthebombs.org. I have nothing to do with it, but I just thought there was a very good slide and information about what's going on. This is just from the 13th on. So anyway, now, at the same time, Mr. T here is requesting a pardon for Netanyahu because around the world, there's warrants out for Mr. Netanyahu. And he's having a real difficult time in his own countries. They want to get rid of him. And again, it's very hard to come by this information unless you're on alternative media sources. All right. So I talk about this again in the inner circle, but this is again, a head scratcher, but we know he's been in bed with that country for many, many years, since he was a builder in New York since the early 70s. So, but Turkey also issues a warrant for the same guy. All right. So we're seeing, and this is all from, social media. Again, take everything with a grain of salt, friends. But this kid, he's leading the charge. Okay. If you don't know who he is absolutely leading the charge. He became the #1 podcast on Spotify, and then they dropped him. #1 in the world, tens of millions of views. But they say he's a racist and he's a this, he's a that. He's just giving you the facts. And here is a very good video. If you want to, it's on Liberty Vault. He talks about this aid package in depth, what's going on financially, why it's important. And he's literally talking to the Gen Z generation, which they are here to basically awaken the masses because they're pissed. They're like, hey, you generations before us, you got us into this situation, and now you're trying to confine us with, no financial opportunities, AI system that's going to control everything, can't afford anything. Look at what you're doing to us. So they're lashing out against governments. Okay. So here's another example of it. Mexico just today, I think it was last night into today, and this is from Benny Johnson. He put out a very good report on it. And there are many other news outlets that are doing it. But he says Gen Z riots erupt in Mexico as youth raid failed narco state palaces after mayor's assassination. So there's thousands of Mexicans now rebelling against their government. And most of them are Gen Z, I would say under 35 years old. So you could see this generation is really playing a major role around the world politically, how they are like, we can't take this anymore. We feel trapped, confined, we're controlled. They just don't want any part of it. And so this is a pretty good presentation. It's about, I don't know, 8-9 minutes long. So this is important because we already saw the youth in Nepal take back their country. They raided the palace. They took out the president there. But here's the most amazing thing that they did in Nepal, which I applaud them for it. After they destroyed things, they all got back out and started to rebuild the city. They started cleaning up the city. All these young kids, I give them so much credit for, standing up against power. But then they went out and they decided to clean things, and they voted on a new leader, and they started to rebuild the country almost immediately, within weeks. So, but again, I'm using this as an example. The Gen Z, again, around the world are waking up, and they are literally going up. And this is what the powers that shouldn't be really fear the most, friends, is the people rise up and literally start going after them. Physically or online or whatever, bringing a light of truth to that. So this is why this implementation for AI is being rolled out at lightning speed. They want that as fast as possible to control the masses. Do you not see that, friends? So this is what the big battle is. And some people have asked me online, Joe, you're an astrologer. Why are you posting all this politics and all this other nonsense? And I almost feel bad for them, these people that ask these questions, because they don't realize how important of a time we are living in right now. Humanity is at a crossroads. These next few years, friends, if humanity doesn't wake up and decide to play a part or a role in its future, it will be completely, and I mean completely, controlled by an AI system that we're not going to be able to get out of. Do you understand what I'm saying? This is why these people are rebelling. This is why Mexico's rebelling. This is why these young kids are posting on platforms left and right about who's controlling what and how. This is one of the most important transitional periods that we are entering in our lifetime. We are participating in it. So when I get a question like, why are you involved in politics and all that? I'm not involved in politics. I'm trying to show you the bigger picture. I'm trying to show you that if you don't wake up and understand how this game is being played on such a large scale, this is not just the United States. This is not about the Middle East. This is not just about one country. It's about a whole system that is being controlled by either a sophisticated AI already and being manipulated by, let's just say, beings that don't have our best interest in mind. And then you have the families and the religions below them controlling everything else. Do you understand now what I'm talking about? This is one of the most important times for us to participate in awareness. No fear, just awareness, and to counter some of these moves that are being made by the deep state. And when I say the deep state, it's a worldwide organization. There are many different factions, and they all work in unison. So now it's time for the people to wake up and work in unison. Got it? So there's your answer to that question. But here is a perfect example of what I am talking about, because this is what I discovered years ago, that America is a corporation with a military-industrial complex. In other words, we are, the United States, is the strong arm, the muscle of this deep state. That's what we are, okay? And the country was funded by Freemasons. We know they were Freemasons, but they weren't the bad Freemasons that we have today. Yeah, and the Freemasons are not bad. It's just they have this knowledge of how the universe works. And they had it back then, and they understood it. Okay, and they were trying to build something in terms of freedom and independence from the system itself. But then along came these criminals right here. And this is, of course, the Rothschild family and some of the others that came in and literally created these central banks all around the world. And when I say Zionist, I do not mean the religion. I mean, these are absolute criminals. They have an idea, this idea that they are going to rebuild the world because it belongs to them. That's their mindset. And they're in the Christian religion, they're in the Jewish religion, they're in the Muslim religion. Doesn't matter. It really, again, as I say it, what I've learned is religion is all a bunch of bullshit. They hide behind religions. Controlled by this group of people, the Jesuits. That's the Vatican. Okay? Indebted to this group of people who basically own about 30% of the land mass on the planet. Go investigate it for yourself. And they seem to be serving a satanic bohemian culture. Now, this is the one that most people don't understand. Okay? And it's been written, 6,000 years ago about these beings that came here and repopulated the earth. But some of them were really kind and giving and shared information and helped rebuild the planet. Then there were others that were not so kind, that wanted to be worshipped, wanted sacrificing, wanted all kinds of blood rituals. That's the ones I'm referring to here. Satanic, that's the word, but I'll give you a hint. It's associated with the planet Saturn. Saturn and Satan are interchangeable. And again, I can't talk about that here, but that's what it means. Anyway, let me move on. All right, so some good news here. Florida officially legalizes gold and silver. This makes like the 16th state to legalize gold and silver for buying things. Now, if you live in one of those 16 states, and most of them are red states, friends, let's face it, and the shift occurs, the financial stuff that they're planning, we still will have a chance to use, let's say, silver coins to buy stuff, or at least to trade amongst each other, or, we're in the wild west of currency right now. No one, even the professionals, don't know exactly where it's going to go. I think the deep state has trouble understanding what's going to happen. And they're nervous too, because you have a lot of these Gen Z kids that are sophisticated computer programmers. And they are absolutely going to create new software or new programs in order to avoid all this digital ID stuff. So you could see we are in a total wild west of currencies. But to see states do this, to legalize gold and silver, is a good idea. I really don't mind that at all. We deal amongst each other. But if the big corporations start taking gold and silver, then I get a little nervous, especially the big banks, because of this. How many of you remember this? This executive order by Roosevelt, where he basically said, you must turn in all your gold. This is a confiscation. This is when America literally took real wealth out of the hands of Americans and said, you must turn it in or we will confiscate it. So there is a concern here. As much as we like the idea of using gold and silver, I still, again, would be very cautious about what's going on in that area. Okay. And so we have to stay on top of it. And again, I'm talking about all this because we're in Scorpio season, which has to do with funding and finance, but it's also Uranus in Taurus, which has a lot to do with the material side of life and finances. So this is why this is all. And by the way, both Taurus and Scorpio, the energy right now from the astrology is also about power, and it's about revealing. So this is why I'm talking about all this right now. Okay. But here's something that just happened a couple of days ago. Apple decides it's rolling out its digital ID on its phones. So what are all you Apple users going to do? You're going to have to log in with either a thumbprint, an eye scan, a facial recognition, something. And friends, the problem is once your biometrics gets into the system, they've got you. You are literally trapped in their system. Once they go fully digital, and I mean get rid of currency altogether, you're not going to be able to use anything other than a digital ID. Once there's a glitch or let's say a retrograde that destroys, the ability to get online, you are screwed. You can't buy food. You can't buy gas. You can't fly, whatever. And then there's nobody you could talk to. There's not going to be a person that you could talk to. Hey, I had this issue. Can you help me out? No, it's going to be artificial intelligence basically saying, get back in line. We don't give a shit. Do you understand the ramifications of this digital ID crap? And many people are gonna not participate in it. So you Apple users, you got a choice to make real soon. Okay, and I hope you choose wisely. All right, so let's get into some of the other stories that have been going on. We see this. This is all over social media. This was on the 10th. How there was a Capitol police officer that matched for the identity of the J6 bomber, and it's all over social media, and it's finally been released. And it's this woman here who I guess was pretending to be a police officer. And believe me, when you're dealing with clandestine alphabet agencies, these people are just the sneakiest of the bunch. And some of them are just being mind programmed. So this is what we're dealing with, friends. This is how deep the rabbit hole goes. What is it? Dr. Steve Turley does a really in-depth dive into this. So I would suggest you watch his video here. Here it is right there. I left the arrow there. You could watch it yourself. Just put that title in YouTube. You'll see it. But he does a real deep dive into it. And so you could see the connection between the government doing things behind the scenes to rebel rouse and cause chaos. And this is nothing new. This has been going on for, thousands of years where the secret governments love to cause chaos. We also have this clown. Basically, I mean, they don't even care anymore. These UN officials, the WEF, all these other groups, basically calling for tighter controls of social media. Gee, imagine that. Can you not see the writing on the wall? Control, control, control. And their agenda is right there, 2030. So the next 5 years is so important to get involved and to pay attention and to understand what is really going on. Get rid of these labels. I'm a Democrat. I'm a Republican. I'm a this. I'm a that. No, you're a human being and you're having an experience here. And the question really is do you value your freedom? Or do you want to be somebody that is on the tit? Oh, I want my payment. I want my security. I need my check. Do you understand there is no money? Money is not real. It does not exist. It's all been artificially created and controlled by this deep state operation worldwide. So it's either you rise up and you pay attention to what's going on and you participate and you stay informed as much as you can, or lose your freedom. So this is what's at stake these next couple of years, friends. All right, so let's get into the astrology. You've got a few more minutes left, and I'll give you a little bit of update of what I see coming in the next week or two. All right, so here on Monday, we start off on November the 17th. The moon enters Scorpio. Very ominous. We need to really pay attention because every time the moon enters Scorpio or Taurus, the opposite sign, it begins to square Pluto right there. So every time this has happened so far, the last couple of times, we've had a major event occur, whether it was a plane going down, the UPS plane in Kentucky, or some other major event taking place. I've been saying this now for the last couple of videos. Pay attention. Monday and Tuesday seems to be a little volatile. There could be another airstrike in the Middle East right here, just in the next couple of days. So pay attention. And this will be exact, I believe, on the evening of the 17th. Okay, the moon will be squaring. Now, normally it doesn't make a difference, but we see other things here. We see the sun almost coming into an opposition to Uranus, which is sudden change, sudden revelation, sudden awarenesses. We see Mars opposing loosely to Uranus in the United States. Again, friction, tension, surprises. We see Jupiter conjunct, it will be conjunct by tomorrow and Tuesday, right on Mercury. So I'm seeing, my spidey senses and my common sense with the astrology is showing me, oh, here we go, another event coming, another situation arising. And then we also have the energy coming in from the new moon on the 19th and 20th. So Mercury enters Scorpio on Tuesday. It backtracks into Scorpio right there, retrogrades. Now look at all this cosmic energy here with the Scorpio energy. Venus is conjuncting the moon. Venus is conjuncting the moon, yeah. And then eventually the moon is going to transit and conjunct the sun, which will be the new moon, and it will be also conjuncting Mercury. So we are seeing lots of volatility. At least I am anyway. I don't know what other astrologers are saying, but look at all this energy with water. Scorpio is a water sign. Jupiter and Cancer is a water sign. These over here are water signs. Okay. And on top of that, we have this opposition that I will cover in a minute with the chart. I'm seeing a lot of volatility here Monday and Tuesday. And I covered all of this already in my weekly astrology video in my Inner Circle community. So another reason to join, because you know, in the Inner Circle, they have a heads up usually a week or so ahead of what's coming down the road. Okay. And I go a little bit more in depth. So again, we're seeing this very intense energy here. So that either there's going to be a new discovery, a new announcement, another power move, some destructive behavior, or maybe even an air attack or another battle in the Middle East. Could be an explosion of some kind, especially as the sun opposes Uranus. So again, that's what I'm seeing this week, friends. In the US, Mercury enters Scorpio right there. Now, I want you to notice something else. As Mercury makes its way and backtracks into Scorpio, look at the sun. The sun is at 27 degrees, squaring the sun of the United States at 27 degrees. A square in astrology can bring in tension, some challenges. It motivates. Okay. So again, I'm looking at either major announcements or some sort of shift of some kind. At the same time, Mercury has backtracked into Scorpio. It is opposing Uranus right there. See, 29, 29. Okay, and they're almost exact. This is the minutes after the hour. So we're seeing some volatility here as well. And so this again, I'm looking at it going, oh boy, fun times. And so Monday, Tuesday, watch for another major event, either involving that country in the Middle East that starts with an I, attacking another country, or something going on in the United States, a major announcement, somebody, basically resigning, or another, Epstein revelation, or some other major news that's going to take front and center again. That's what I'm seeing, friends. Okay. And this is all Monday and Tuesday. Now, let's talk about the new moon because it's going to be very important wherever this is in your actual birth chart, because we have all the signs in our birth chart. This is going to be a new moon late on the 19th into the 20th. It's actually going to be at like 1:47 in the morning. So here is that new moon. All right. It's going to be at 28 degrees of Scorpio. It conjuncts Mercury retrograde. All right. And it opposes Uranus at 29 degrees. So this is a very powerful sort of startling revelation awareness, going deep within and discovering something. Now, there are other aspects here that I'm going to cover in a second, but wherever this is in your birth chart, this is the area you want to focus in because it's a transformational energy. It's an awareness. It's an awakening. It's just like, oh, wow, I need to change this part of my life, And because we're talking Scorpio, we're talking Taurus, we're talking finances as well. This is a very important time because, there's a lot of moves being made about money and currency and the digital stuff. We know the system is dying. We know the financial system is crumbling. This is why they're rushing out to get this digital ID out so they could control everything digitally without any actual currency. That's the bottom line, friends. But this is a powerful transformational moon, and Mercury's involved directly. And so this means communication. So there's going to be all kinds of communication issues that arise, powerful speeches, people rebelling, like we see with these Gen Z kids, just rising up and saying, hey, enough is enough, So, but we also see some positive alignments to this. We see a positive alignment to Saturn. We see a positive alignment to Neptune, even more so. And then we see a positive alignment to Jupiter. This actually makes what's called a kite alignment in astrology. And the kite has a lot to do with some positive energy, but it also has to do with some transformational energy. It's like flying a kite. Literally, we're up in the air, kind of trying to figure it out. Okay, but there's a lot of water here. Okay, so there could be some issues with water too. There could be another major event involving a storm of some kind. And this is in I would say the United States, but it could be anywhere because, people in the Philippines have been hit by tsunamis just recently in this past week. So, this is the power of Scorpio. It's devastating energy. It's like it goes in and it transforms, and then it begins to morph into something else. But the energy is very emotional. The energy is very, very much about the past because of the retrogrades. Okay. But it's a very profound way of looking at things. Scorpio energy is very psychic. So pay attention to your spidey senses. Look deeper. Don't just look at the superficial, stuff on the top. All right. So here it is in the United States. I'm going to just go right through these slides real quick because we're running out of time here. It's in the United States' 12th house, the 12th house of the hidden realm, the secrets, the spiritual side. And so what I'm going to see here, what I am seeing here in the next 2 weeks is more things that are hidden, that the United States has been hiding, that the leadership has been hiding. This will affect many of us because we're going to start seeing the bigger pictures. We're going to get more clarity on, oh, that's why they're doing that. Oh, this is why there's sneaky deals being made with the country in the Middle East. We're seeing all of this being revealed. It's like, and by the way, Scorpio also rules like spies and clandestine behavior and all that other stuff. So it's all coming out, friends. There's no stopping this tidal wave of awakening. and it's in every area. All right. The sun enters Sagittarius. Now the energy shifts. As you can see here, we have Mars, and now the sun. Now this is where we start getting really curious. But Sagittarius is very optimistic. So we go from this clandestine, secretive mindset to more of a curiosity and more optimism and more action. This is a fire sign. So we're seeing the energy shifting after the 21st. But politics falls under the umbrella of Sagittarius. So it wouldn't surprise me we have more nonsense with regards to politics. Here it is in the United States, and the United States has a Sag rising. Notice Mars is in at 12 degrees. Very important. The United States seems to be involved in something very important starting this week. Again, it could be a conflict. It could be an agreement. It could be something to do with military. All right. The way I'm seeing it here. And Jupiter is conjunct Mercury, you see? And we have Mercury also squaring Pluto. No, actually sextile Pluto. It's squaring the moon. You see that? So again, this is a very volatile week, friends, in terms of the geopolitical nonsense. And the United States is front and center. Mercury goes direct on the 29th. Now we start to return with some clarity, but it's still in Scorpio. So this is where we start to understand things and piece things together. Okay, this is what we need to do. All right, this is what we need to figure out, where we need to go. And it's all about the future because the sun and Mars are both in Sagittarius. Venus will also enter Sagittarius. I'm just running through these, friends. Notice this, when it goes direct, 28 degrees, it's going to oppose Uranus once again. So we're talking about words and communication that are going to be front and center here, friends. Very important. There's going to be a lot of talk and revealing of things coming. Venus enters Sagittarius from November the 30th to the 24th. Here it is. So this makes things much more optimistic. But again, it's a fire sign. It's a get up and go kind of sign. So many of us are going to feel like we need to travel. We need to explore. We want to get out of the ordinary doldrums that we've been going through. All right, here it is in the United States. Again, notice what's happening here. The sun and Venus and Mars will all be in the first house of the United States. So again, I'm expecting some major news announcements coming from the United States in some way by the end of the month. I'm not saying it's good or bad, but for the most part, it'll be surprising. That's what I would say. Okay. The full moon in Gemini again. And this is going to be very important because it's Gemini, the sign of Mr. T. And so this is about revelations and understandings, but it's also a giant T square to the north node, which symbolically represents going in a new direction or dissolving something or coming to realization of something. And it's in Gemini. And here it is in the United States' chart. It's in the 7th house. We are starting to realize who our partners are around the world. We're starting to realize how the game is being played, especially around this full moon. Okay. Here it is in Mr. T's chart. It's right at the top of his chart. So he is directly involved. This will affect him somehow, some way. There's more information coming out about him and his connections and what's going on with him. And because it's at the high point of his chart right there. And Uranus is also backtracking, and it will loosely square his Mars by the end of the year. So he's definitely front and center here, and he has lost a lot of, the mega group because of this connection to that country in the Middle East. So we're seeing that faction on the right dividing. And so it's going to be really interesting to see. Anyway, friends, let me wrap this up because I got to get into the Inner Circle community in a few minutes. So if you want to read my newsletter, it's basically an astrology newsletter. You could go to astrologerjoe.com. You could sign up there. There you could also get the free moon reading, which is a mini moon reading. So you have no obligation, but if you do purchase it, it does help us out. Of course, I do have my other websites also, planetswithin.com. It's right there on the front page. And of course, if you do get the moon reading, you click on your sign, and then it'll give you the 2 options for the months that are associated with that sign. And then you get the link. And if you decide to buy it, like I said, it helps us out a little bit. Anyway, going into the Inner Circle, link down below. Check it out. Hope to see some of you. I will be talking about that other country in the Middle East, today, and we'll go into their chart, and I'll tell you a little bit more about what I see there. And anyway, friends, remember, we are spiritual beings having this human experience, and we're going through one hell of an awakening process right now. So keep that in mind. All right. So let me stop this, and we'll end this presentation. Let me see here, right there. Stop the streaming. All right, friends. Thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. And I hope to see many of you in the inner circle. And again, we have a wild week ahead. So have a great week. Do the best you can. And I will see you guys soon. Bye for now.